So today's topic that I'll be addressing is learning centers. Okay, learning centers are pretty much different locations in the classroom where students can engage in different activities to help support their learning. The step by step for this is to identify the skills to be practiced. So normally, um, you would have to teach these skills before assigning students to practice them. So they have to already have been taught in the classroom. You have to introduce the centers, make sure the students understand the rules and the expectations that you require of them when they go through these these learning centers. Okay, so that learning can happen. So the rules for moving from one center to the next should be discussed and modeled. So you're actually going to show students how you want them to uh, leave the station for the next group and what they should be doing when they're at a specific station as well. Okay, and also document the center work. There's a few ways you can do this. You can walk around with a rubric that shows the students' names, and you could document their participation that way. You can just visually, if you have a good point of view with all of the stations, you can actually look and determine whether a group is on or off task with that station. Okay, bring students up to date. So some students might forget some of the rules in specific stations. So as you move students from one station to the next, just quickly go up to each student and remind them what is expected when they are at that learning center. So the next part is to assess students' progress and understanding. So this is I think is the most important part. This is actually is I think where you can get the most teachable moments uh, in the learning center is when you have questions in the learning center that students must answer together, and you can actually check for understanding. So this would let uh, pretty much the educator know how students are doing with the practice of the topic that is at that learning center. Okay, and adding technology, if you can incorporate a station to have technology where students can uh, learn about the topic digitally, it'll make that learning center a little bit more powerful than the others. Okay. The example that we were given is an eighth grade class with the teacher, Mr. Tanaka. The topic was writing poems. His class has never written poems before, so it starts off with him showing his students how to write poems and pointing out that in the story that they're reading, the poems didn't have to rhyme. Okay, not all poems have to rhyme, and he showed them two different types of poems. One was called the Cinquain, and the other was the Diamante poem. Okay, there are two specific. I think these are academic poems, very formulaic, and it's a good guide for students to use when they are writing their first poems. Again, poems do not have to rhyme. So one of the stations that he had was again actually writing a Cinquain poem or a Diamante poems. Another station he had was an internet research center where students can look up specific words if they couldn't think of one from the word bank that was provided by the teacher. Another learning center was the art center, again where they can use the the visual portion of the poetry to get an illustration of the poem. Okay. Also, the Unforgettable Character Center. So this teacher had, I think, six different centers for the students to use in order to learn different aspects of writing a poem, and having different aspects in pretty much intertwined within one room was definitely going to help each student differently and make it more interesting. The video component that Mr. Tanaka had was for students to create a short video. This is actually very interesting. In Bloom's taxonomy for verbs, This was actually the create portion. So this actually gives students a chance uh, to build their higher order thinking skills. So this part, using the digital media portion in order to have students practice their higher order thinking skills is an excellent part in this learning center. So you can actually incorporate different levels of difficulty in the learning centers. Okay, one way that I use this in the classroom I was teaching was it was a geometry portion. It was very difficult to teach geometry because there's a lot of different academic language that you have to use and a lot of visuals that students have to take notice of when they look at a specific shape or specific lines. So some of the learnings, I think I just kept it to one learning center. It was just a set of 8 problems, varying in different difficulties. And so instead of having students move from center to center, I had them in specific groups and had them actually look at a screen where they were pretty much asked to solve specific geometric shapes from easy to challenging. So, for example, one of the questions was create a quadrilateral that has, I don't know, 2 right angles, an obtuse angle, and an acute angle. So that would probably be number one. And all the students would have to work on that same problem. And again, of course, they would be covering up their answers. And I would give out tickets as a reward for completing it only after they were able to show me that they were able to follow the attribute list, and each of them was able to point out and describe what they had created. So it pretty much forced all of them to be accountable for everyone to know everything about that shape. Because I would come up to them and ask a random person about the specific angle. What angle is that? Can you point to the right angle? Can you put your fingers on the 2 parallel lines? Can you put your finger on the 2 lines that make that make the polygon convex? So it would force the students to look at the terminology and kind of know how to uh, express that they know what the those vocab words are. So, and right here in the black, this is not my classroom. This is an example classroom. I would have the students separated into their groups, and they all would have access to the big screen in the middle. I would only have one big anchor chart of geometry work, so it'd be like one wall, and again, we would all have already covered this. It would look something like this. This is a little portion of it. We have a right angle, parallel lines, perpendicular lines. You would have a lot of geometric information and arrows, and all. I would put the students that have the most trouble right under that anchor chart so that they could have instant access to looking at it. So usually this would be, I think, perfect for newcomers or just my English language learners, where they could have access to the illustrations of how the geometric shapes and lines and angles should look like. Okay, so that was the one way I used the Learning Center. Again, it was a very modified version. I wouldn't have different stages for students to move. I would just have them move through 8 problems of very increasing difficulty, with starting from easy, and then from there, students would either finish or get very close to finishing, and then it would be a pretty fun race because students would feel accomplished once their group checked off one and were able to go on to the next one, and they would all receive some tickets. Okay, so that was the way that I kind of used the learning centers. It was just to separate students into groups and have them all participate and come up with the solution to the questions that were on the digital board. So the approximation behaviors for my grade level, it would be the 4 through 8, and that would be to use materials in a structured way to construct or discover a specific learning objective and to extend skills through independent practice based on classroom instruction. So I think this one is the one that I think I would tend toward with that activity in the learning center. They would use push pins and string in order to make right angles, obtuse angles, acute angles in order to solve the questions that were on the board. So it's pretty interesting seeing students put pins and string around it in order to make their shapes to demonstrate that they know how these lines and vertices should meet in order to pretty much meet the specifications. Okay, so this was again about learning centers. They're very beneficial. It helps our English language learners uh, collaborate. And if they don't understand something, again, if you're walking around facilitating the groups and they're all working on the same one, it's very easy to go up to them and see where they're stuck and help them by looking at an anchor chart and navigating with them so that they all can understand what they need to do and give them a guide on how to do it. Okay.